Hey there, fellow Patriots. Welcome back to our channel. Welcome back to another episode, and let's just go ahead and get right into it. So we are less than 1 week away from the election, and to be quite honest, I'm not sitting comfortably. The polls are whatever news outlet you decide to turn on, right? Most of them are calling it close and within the margin of error for either side. And many say the polls usually underperform for Trump, and so if he's tied up by a point or two, that means he can be up as much as 5 points. So I don't know, right? But bottom line is we've been here before, and we know how the Democrats, they need to make things believable to the general audience in order to have a repeat of 2020. Let's just be frank. Now, some are saying that the Democrats know they're losing, so they're desperate, and they know it. Now, let's take a look and analyze in some of our videos today to see if they're actually in desperation mode or if there's some actual cause for concern. So based on the last minute media blitz Kamala Harris did, starting a couple of weeks back, like maybe 2 weeks ago, she tanked in spectacular manner, not just once, not just twice, but across the board. Once again, she's unable to directly answer straightforward and easy questions. Questions that someone who is being essentially interviewed for a position should be able to answer. These were not difficult or I gotcha type questions, right? These are questions that should be at the forefront, and sadly, she couldn't answer it, even on friendly networks. After being unable to score a second debate with Trump, Kamala Harris decides to go on Fox News in order to, in my view, check a box. It's a checkbox if we're going to be truthful. Here she is sitting down with Bret Baier, who didn't let her off the hook easy.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Brett.
Voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
When you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate, and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am. It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of... Yes. But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So, you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
You know, it's so frustrating to see all those questions. She can't directly answer them. They're questions that, you know, the voters have in mind. And it's not just right-wing voters, right? So here's the interesting part. I don't remember Hillary Clinton going on Fox back in like 2016, right? I don't remember Joe Biden going on Fox in either election runs. But Kamala Harris decides to go on Fox. Knowing she's going to get grilled, she still went. One can either say she's being brave, or one can say it's to check a box. I would say it's to check the box. When you compare how many hostile shows Trump's been on, which are numerous, it's easy to conclude that she isn't brave at all. So by default, it's got to be to check that box, especially since she's only been on that one interview on that one non-friendly platform, right? So after that terrible interview, she goes on to CNN with Anderson Cooper, who actually presses her. Or you can look at it from the fact that he's trying to throw her a layup numerous times, but she just doesn't, she can't slam dunk it, right?
Is there something you can point to in your life, political life or in your life in the last 4 years, that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes. And they range from, you know, if you've ever parented a child, you know, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
What weaknesses do you bring to the table, and how do you plan to overcome them while you're in office?
That's a great question, Joe. Well, I am certainly not perfect, so let's start there. And I think that perhaps a weakness, some would say, but I actually think it's a strength, is I really do value having a team of very smart people around me who bring to my decision-making process different perspectives. My team will tell you, I am constantly saying, let's kick the tire on that. Let's kick the tires on it.
There's only one reaction to what you just witnessed.
It's so frustrating to see her not answer questions. She takes a long time, and then her answers make no sense, right? What imperfections or what opportunities do you have? Well, I have very smart people on my team. That's not an opportunity. I mean, anyhow, you know, since the Titanic known as Kamala Harris is sinking, out of obvious desperation, the media has now amplified their hateful rhetoric of calling Trump Hitler in order to fearmonger those who are still undecided.
This as part of Operation Mockingbird, with John Kelly and General Mark Milley all saying that Donald Trump loves Hitler, repeatedly, constantly praised him. Total fake news. And it wasn't just the top story that they talked about at the top of the hour. It was all they talked about all day, every hour, every segment, on every show on Clown News and MSDNC. Here's Caitlin Collins returning from a commercial break to continue beating a dead horse, to saturate the airwaves with this fake news, just hoping to reach as many morons as possible who happen to tune in to this nonsense.
Back with our breaking news tonight is Donald Trump's former chief of staff, his longest-serving chief of staff, General John Kelly, is now going on the record 2 weeks before the election to say that Trump meets the definition of a fascist and said nice things about Hitler.
Okay.
Not just because of his admiration for Adolf Hitler, but because of his admiration for Adolf Hitler's generals. In an article by Jeffrey Goldberg in The Atlantic about Donald Trump's admiration for Hitler and Hitler's generals, who every
person with a brain in America and around the world knows is fake news.
But what we now see in these closing weeks is that this is a campaign in which there is going to be a reaffirmation of regular political order in this country, or there's going to be a real triumph of fascism in which good, well-meaning Republicans have allowed themselves to get carried down this path and go along with this rhetoric. That is really what these, absolutely.
Even Anderson Cooper's like, I don't know, man. Maybe we're ratcheting up the crazy a little bit too much.
That is really what these, absolutely. Let's listen to General Milley saying of Donald Trump, fascist to the core, the most dangerous man in America. General Milley is a pretty level guy. Let's listen to what Donald Trump is telling us. He is telling us what he's going to do.
Like I said, this was a recycled story from, well, the last 8 years, but also from 2 years ago, where they tried to float this piece of disinfo saying that Donald Trump wanted the Pentagon generals to be like the Nazis.
Unbelievable. Milley, the guy who said he would warn China if Trump decided to attack, he's the one calling Trump, a fascist. It's unbelievable. But this type of rhetoric has been going on for almost a decade now when it comes to Trump and his supporters. The media does its fair share of media manipulation to paint, the racist picture, right? They cut clips at specific moments and leave off anything that hurts the false narrative they try to paint, such as, for example, the peaceful protest remark, right? They never show that part, right? They leave that out. Then other times they completely twist things out of just common sense, right? Like with the Lysol disinfectant, he likened sunlight or I think it was UV light. If you could hit C19 cells with the UV light, it would wipe them out, and he likened it to like a disinfectant, like Lysol. And they went on to say Trump is suggesting you ingest Lysol or Clorox or something of that nature, and it was just stupid. He made a comparison, it'll kill it like Lysol kills this bacteria on the outside, right? Not for you to ingest it. Anyhow, then sometimes they just make stuff up out of the blue, right? For instance, when someone accused one of Trump's staffers of calling C19 the Kung Flu virus, right? I mean, these people are absolutely disgusting. In their latest hearsay claim, the propaganda machine is accusing Trump of so many additional false claims. Let's just take a small sample.
And so they also released another fake story that's gone viral. The Mockingbirds are repeating about how Donald Trump supposedly insulted a dead Mexican soldier.
Trump had told the family that the military would be paying for the funeral. And then he said, if you need help, I'll help you out. So a few months later, when he's in this meeting with staff, this is where the reporting comes in. According to Goldberg, Trump asked, did they bill us for the funeral? What did it cost? According to attendees and contemporaneous notes of the meeting taken by a participant, and aide answers, yes, we received a bill. The funeral cost $60,000. Trump became angry. It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a Mexican. Excuse my language there. I just read it. But that's what he said.
Oh, that's what he said. No, that is the fake news story that's being spread in order to try to tarnish his image among Latino voters. In fact, the family of this fallen soldier and Mark Meadows, who was in the meeting that Donald Trump allegedly made these comments, have denounced these horrific lies. And last night they dropped what they're hoping to be a double whammy of disinformation, since most people are just rolling their eyes at the fake news about Donald Trump admiring Hitler and his generals, having a copy of Mein Kampf on his nightstand next to his bed. The London Guardian broke this disinfo last night that had been shopped around for some time that is so ridiculous and obviously false that not even CNN or MSNBC or BuzzFeed would touch it, and that Donald Trump met with Jeffrey Epstein, who brought him a model, and then they played a twisted game with her.
The media is a nonstop propaganda machine versus actual journalists, and these people really should be ashamed of themselves. So based on the videos that we've just shown, we can see that they are in desperation mode. But unfortunately, due to events that have taken place this week, they are now reinvigorated, if you will. It saddens me to have to report this, but Trump had a rally at Madison Square Garden, and it was completely packed. It was jam-packed. saw old faithful MAGA people come out, newcomers from every corner, and there were probably some who, are still unsure and they just wanted to see things for themselves. What should have been another media meltdown regarding Trump and the crowd turned into ammo for the left, unfortunately. Now, I'm going to play this next video in sequential order for a specific reason. During the rally, a podcast comedian was asked to present, and he made some jokes. So let's take a look at that.
In Texas, stuff is really, really crazy. We're right there by a wide open border. Where are my proud Latinos at tonight? You guys see what I mean? It's wide open. There's so many of them. It's absolutely incredible. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country. Republicans are the party with a good sense of humor. There's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. Again, normally I don't follow the national anthem, everybody. This isn't exactly a perfect comedy setup.
Now, when I saw the Puerto Rico clip, I immediately thought to myself and asked, why? Knowing the left's constant rhetoric about Trump being racist, calls of being a Hitler lover, and his followers being Nazis and white supremacists, why on God's green earth would anyone think doing these types of jokes would be strategically smart? We know the left is going to use this to continue to fan the flames of racism. And, honestly, this one's a difficult one to excuse because of what he's talking about. We'll break it down in a minute. But here's what I want you guys to see. This is what the left does. Now, I played it in sequential order. I actually watched his segment. It was like a 12-minute segment. I watched the whole thing. But this is what they're showing.
There's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Where are my proud Latinos at tonight? You guys see what I mean? It's wide open. There's so many of them. It's absolutely incredible. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this.
Did you notice the difference between the original video in chronological order versus the one that I just finished showing you, which is being aired on a Hispanic night show? They switched it. More than likely done on purpose because, when I saw the first version and then I saw the other version, I definitely felt different. At the first one, I was like, that's just so stupid. And then the second one I saw, I was like, it's still stupid, but it didn't have the same impact. So I'm wondering if the manipulation was done on purpose. Now, this clip I just finished playing for you is what's being broadcasted on Spanish media cycles. Unlike English-American or English-speaking American media that has some conservative news stations to offset, the Latin community has none. In a race that is apparently so close within the margin of error, we cannot afford this type of stupidity from happening, man. We really can't. We need as many people, as many votes as possible. And when you do and say stuff like this, for those that are not politically astute, it does impact them. Apparently, the terrible joke was due to Puerto Rico facing a landfill problem, which has been reported now for several years. And unless you know about it, you're not going to get the joke, which I didn't because I didn't know about this landfill issue. But let's take a look.
I think what the comedian meant, and when you have to explain a joke, it really isn't that funny. And again, it was the wrong venue for that joke, is that under the management of the Biden-Harris administration, Puerto Rico has become a trash heap. And there are old articles now, you can barely find them anymore because Google has boosted all the ones about, Donald Trump now calling the island trash. Articles like this, a trash crisis leaves Puerto Rico near the brink. Most of Puerto Rico's landfills fail to meet federal standards and are almost full. Residents and experts worry that trash will soon overwhelm the region. And this article is from 3 years ago, and trash did overwhelm the region. Puerto Rico landfill problems. All you need to know, this was published 2 years ago, saying that the landfills are almost full. And according to a study from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, Puerto Rico could run out of landfill space in 2 to 4 years. And they did. So they are a U.S. territory, and they don't have any space to put their trash. And Joe Biden is still supposedly the president of the United States and is doing nothing to actually help them.
So to my Puerto Rican friends, I get it. You might be upset by the joke, and you have a right. You have a right based on how it was told and where it was told. I get it. But darn, there's an actual problem, and you're not upset about that. There's an actual administration in play right now, and one of the people that's part of that administration is trying to get your vote again. And for the last 4 years or 3 years, they've done nothing and allowed the problem to compound. So let's put away the emotional indignation and let's take a look at, the logical side of things, right? I know it's difficult, I get it, but we really got to look at problems. Are they being resolved or not, right? So 1 week prior to the election, this unfortunate bad strategy has opened the door for highly influential people amongst the Latin community to publicly endorse and show their support for Kamala Harris. Again, this is just so stupid given where we're at right now in the election.
This guy, comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, who delivered a nasty joke about Puerto Ricans that's causing a political firestorm.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
The backlash is intense.
Puerto Rico is trash. We are Americans, Donald Trump.
The View's Sonny Hostin seethed today.
We know how to take the trash out, Donald Trump.
The joke prompted big stars of Puerto Rican descent, including Jennifer Lopez, Ricky Martin, and Bad Bunny, to endorse Kamala Harris. Even Republicans seemed baffled at the decision to book Hinchcliffe, a known shock comic with a popular podcast.
In that video, did you catch two things Sonny said? Just like the left does, she moved the goalposts from the island of Puerto Rico to the people of Puerto Rico and connected them to garbage, which is why they are doubling down on the racist rhetoric. Let's be clear, an island isn't race, right? It's not a race. Puerto Rico has black Puerto Ricans, white Puerto Ricans, brown Puerto Ricans, Indian Puerto Ricans, etc., right? But that's what the left does, and that's why we can't afford to give them this type of ammunition. The second thing I want to address is the immigrant part of the joke, right? I'm going to switch from Sonny to the actual joker, right? Just like the left confuses legal and illegal immigration to throw up smoke screens for political leverage, this guy made the same mistake by trying to say he doesn't want immigrants here at all, right? He didn't say illegal immigrants, he said immigrants. And then he looked at the audience and he said, you see, they're all here, and so on and so forth. So it's not distinguishable, and it's really stupid on his part. So I'm not sure why the Puerto Rican joke hit harder when that's a small percentage of the entire Latin population. So, the other joke should be worse since it's towards all Hispanics, right? All Hispanics. Not being allowed to enter the country, even by legal standards, as he, like I said, he didn't differentiate between the two groups. So that's that. The third thing, going back to Sonny's response, is who she addresses this to. It wasn't to the comedian, but it was to Donald Trump, as if Donald Trump himself booked this guy. And that's what the left does. That's how manipulative and deceptive the left is. Now, I get it. It's his venue, but it wasn't him. And so, but they're going to use that towards their advantage, right? Now, thankfully, Trump is and has distanced himself from this guy, but I think the damage is done when it comes to a good portion of the Hispanic community. But let's take a look at Donald Trump distancing himself.
It was a comedian who made a joke in poor taste. Obviously, that joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or our campaign.
So you have this big event at Madison Square Garden. It went on for hours. I don't even know if you were there for the whole thing. I don't know what time you got there. I was told and made aware that you had no idea about this comedian who made comments.
I have no idea who he is. Somebody said there was a comedian that joked about Puerto Rico or something, and I have no idea who he was. Never saw him, never heard of him, and don't want to hear of him. But I have no idea. They put a comedian in, which everybody does. You throw comedians in. You don't vet them and go crazy. It's nobody's fault. But somebody said some bad things. Now, what they've done is taken somebody that has nothing to do with the party, has nothing to do with us, said something, and they try and make a big deal. But I don't know who it is. I don't even know who put him in. And I can't imagine it's a big deal. I've done more for Puerto Rico than any president, I think, that's ever been president.
So now let's be real. You know, people like Jennifer Lopez and Ricky Martin and Bad Bunny, people are never going to vote for Trump. But since the media has done a phenomenal job of manipulation, many people who run on emotions, and given the fact that over 70% of Hispanics vote Democrat, and if we look at specifically the Puerto Rican population, I would have to take a guess and say over 90% of them vote Democrat, and they look at these stars as influence. This shift can absolutely influence these voters, these undecided voters, or these middle ground voters, and we absolutely cannot afford that this late in the game. Now, it's such a costly mistake, and what I want to play is some of, and this isn't all, but this is that portion of that population, right?
Is this the kind of comment that could actually cost Mr. Trump some votes?
You know, Sade, it makes you wonder what's the political strategy here, right? It's tough to figure it out. Here we are in the Bronx, home to many of the roughly 1 million Puerto Ricans who live in the 5 boroughs, who live here and vote here as well. Many of them we talked to today, they knew about the comments that were uttered at the rally last night. They also knew that it wasn't the former president who uttered those words, but at the same time they said it'll be the former president who pays the price on Election Day. Approach a Puerto Rican in New York and play the video of last night's incendiary comments about their homeland, and then watch the fire ignite.
What kind of people say that? Yeah. They don't know us. Yeah. Why they judge like that?
It's really hard to accept that came out of his mouth.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
That was comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, who tried to fire up a jam-packed Madison Square Garden crowd of Trump supporters ahead of the former president's speech. The joke bombed, but the explosive fallout reverberated across the country to the 5 million plus stateside Puerto Ricans, many of them registered voters, and more than 3 million American citizens on the island.
Convicted Trump didn't say the words that were said at his rally, but it doesn't matter because it was his rally.
Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey. Oh. This afternoon in East Harlem, a who's who of Puerto Rican federal, state, and city leaders held a news conference to condemn the comments uttered Sunday night, comments made at a rally designed to gain supporters in a tight presidential election, comments that could backfire in a key battleground state.
So, you know, he made a calculated error yesterday. Basically, he said goodbye to PA, to Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, we have 450,000 Puerto Ricans.
This is about human rights, civil rights, and this is about my people, my mother, my grandmother who died after Maria. This is about our people who have suffered for way too long.
He has shown us time and time again that he doesn't value us, that he doesn't value our vote, that he doesn't respect us as people.
So one of the guys had talked about Hurricane Maria, I just want to remind my Puerto Rican friends that that feel indifferent, that I think the people of Puerto Rico got more assistance, more immediate assistance when Maria hit than the people of Ohio had that chemical bomb, than the people of Hawaii when their houses were on fire, than the people of North Carolina when they got swept away by Helene just a couple of weeks ago. So let's just keep things into perspective. Let's also remind ourselves that a good portion of the FEMA assistance that was sent, like water and diapers for babies and supplies, were being kept in a storage by the mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico. She hid it from the people in order to make it look like Donald Trump didn't do anything. The administration was not helping the Puerto Rican people in order to play the racist card and the racist narrative. So I just want to remind people how deceptive the left is, and we really cannot be giving them any type of ammunition. So doing my own analysis on social media platform, I have like 3 conservative Puerto Rican friends that they took offense, but they're intelligent enough to hold the comments to the comedian and not Trump, unlike that gentleman over there that likened or connected the comments to Trump because it was a Trump rally, right? Then I have 2 Puerto Rican friends who are strong Trump supporters. That's Dahlia and Miles. I'm going to give you guys a shout out. I know you guys are watching. You guys watch and support the channel. They didn't give a flying fudge. They're not moving from Trump. They know how the left already operates. As a matter of fact, Miles posted on his page. He thought the joke was funny. So I disagree with him on that. But if that's how he took it, kudos to him, right? Then I have 2 independent friends that also remained unchanged in their support for Trump. And I have one leftist who's an ever-Trumper. Now, one of the independents is really interesting because he's recently come over, right? He used to be on the left. So he's got a bunch of leftists on his page. And the comments based on his response was split. It was split. You had some that didn't, never Trumpers, didn't want to. And then you had the ones that, are awake enough that they're like, nope, not moving. I'm still supporting. So it's really interesting. I don't know what the overall impact is. We'll just have to keep monitoring. Now, the outrage given by the left is expected, but also hypocritical. Likewise for the Hispanics on the right who are outraged. Why do I say this? Give me a moment and I'll explain it. Because just 2 years ago, an NBC reporter likened Venezuelan migrants that were sent to Martha's Vineyards as trash, and no one made a stink about it. We reported it way back when it happened, but I don't recall any Hispanics on the left or on the right say anything about it. Additionally, remember when Kelly Osbourne said if Donald Trump deports all Latinos, who's going to clean his toilet bowls?
View today with guest co-host Kelly Osbourne.
There are a lot of Latinos here in this country that do agree that the immigration problem is a problem and it does need to be addressed and it does need to be fixed.
Interesting.
But making those comments, those racist comments, do not help.
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that you know what I mean. Like when I'm saying
there's more jobs to be
in LA. They always
but
they
Latinos
don't.
Are not only the only people
I didn't mean
doing
it like that. Come on. No, I would never mean it like that.
I would never mean it like that. But you did say it. Listen, I'm a vice president at a major financial institution. I've worked in finance sector since '99. Have a bachelor's degree, and I even do freelance 3D animation. To generalize us in that manner is just utterly incorrect. But I didn't hear anyone getting offended. I expect the left not to say anything because she's on the left, so I get that. But I also didn't hear anybody on the right getting offended now. And I get it. We don't normally get offended. But then if that's the case, why are we all of a sudden getting offended by this guy? I'm just throwing the question out there. I'm not saying that you don't have a right to get offended, but I'm just saying if you're going to get offended for one, you should have gotten offended way back then when those 2 issues happened from the left as well. Here are my final thoughts. Guys, in the end, I want everyone to keep what's in sight, well, like the perspective in sight. This isn't about being sensitive or getting offended, free speech, censorship, yada, yada, yada. Right now, we are in a fight against corporate media, Hollywood elites, academia, corporate America, and everybody else. MAGA isn't going anywhere. But right now, we are trying to bring over those who are on the fence and not decided, because MAGA alone is not enough based on what took place in 2020. If the left is playing these types of clips to swing voters,
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
She is some sick that Hillary Clinton, huh? What a sick son of a. The whole party, a bunch of degenerates.
Can you imagine Kamala Harris performing a random, kind, generous act? She is the devil, whoever screamed that out. She is the Antichrist.
Her and her pimp handlers will destroy our country. We need to slaughter this other people.
They're smart and they're vicious, and we have to defeat them. And when I say the enemy from within, the other side goes crazy.
And so if this is what they're seeing, because the mainstream media is just so biased, then how can we expect to win these key battleground states that we obviously need? Again, this is not about anything else. It's really about no room for error. And although we can show other clips of Kamala Harris saying, doing stuff.
News, I'm Symphony Thompson. On Tuesday, Kamala Harris would host a rally in Atlanta as part of her political campaign to energize voters in Georgia. She was joined by Atlanta rapper Quavo and Megan Thee Stallion, which earned criticism from many people online.
Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States, why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a
cakewalk. So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people.
Oh, you would never say that a significant portion of the American people are stupid, would you? Oh, wait, what's this?
Remember, age is more than a chronological fact. What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid.
Most of them,
That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
I mean, we can show those types of clips of Kamala saying that they're stupid, Joe Biden calling us garbage, Hillary Clinton calling us deplorables. It just doesn't have the same impact. Why? Because there's an obvious disproportionate amount of leftist news media and news cycles versus conservative ones. We've got to be smarter. We've got to be better than the left. Up until this joke, the media was obviously in desperation mode. But I think given this bad joke, it's put some extra gas in their tank and given them some superficial credibility for those that are easily persuaded by emotions. You know, Senator Marco Rubio, his Cuban parents, took to his social media platform and said this: I understand why some people were offended by a comedian's jokes last night, but those weren't Trump's words. They were jokes by an insult comic who offends virtually everyone all the time, because that's what insult comedians do. What isn't a joke is how Kamala Harris destroyed our economy and allowed dangerous criminals to illegally enter our country and terrorize, rape, and murder Americans. And what isn't a joke and truly outrageous is how, quote-unquote, journalists are helping Kamala Harris with her dangerous campaign of hate by calling Trump the new Hitler, and how MSNBC used old footage of Nazi rallies to smear Trump supporters as Nazis. I think Senator Rubio is right, and I expressed something very similar. In the end, though I didn't like the jokes, it doesn't impact my pockets. I'd rather someone hurt my feelings, hurt them all you want, but don't hurt my pockets. Because that's what, I provide for my family. And that's exactly what's happening with this administration. Thankfully, we have many smart Hispanics who are using their intellect more than their emotions and are focused on what's more important. as this Puerto Rican senator officially endorses Donald Trump after the Madison Square Garden rally.
Need the leadership of Donald J. Trump as our commander-in-chief, and Dave McCormick for a renewed leadership in the United States Senate. Pennsylvanians, American all, a better future is in your hands. Your vote is the most powerful tool you have to bring about change. And for Latinos, dale a Trump la fuerza de tu voto. For those reasons, among many others, I strongly and fully support and endorse Donald J. Trump to be our 47th president, to make America great again, and of course, to make Puerto Rico shine again. Thank you, and God bless you all.
So will this situation cost us the election? It's hard to say, and I hope it doesn't. But if it does, it'll be really hard to tell, given, the numerous suspicious things that are already happening, like 2 ballot boxes being set on fire in Oregon and in Washington, if I'm not mistaken. At the end, guys, again, we got to be smarter. It's so close. I wish this event never happened, but it did, and now we just got to sit, pray, and everybody's got to go out and vote early, vote in person. Don't drop it off at the mailbox. And hopefully we can get over this hump. Hopefully Trump wins. And hopefully the margin is too big for them to cheat again. And I just, listen, man, I just want what's best for my country. I just want my security, financial and physical. I want my country to be great, because in the end, it's where we live. I can't understand how "Make America Great Again" is a bad phrase or a bad slogan. It's a great idea. It's an idea I supported even before it was a slogan. I've always wanted my country to be great. I will see you on Election Day. God bless you, God bless our country, and God bless Trump.